Hey, Courtney, I'm so excited about you being here with us today. I would love for you just to introduce yourself and tell us all about your expertise.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so happy I could make this work this afternoon. My name is Courtney Freilich. I have been an educational diagnostician for 12 years at a school in the DFW area. And I just have a passion for bringing parents into the process. I think when we collaborate, it makes things a lot better. So I reached out and wanted to talk to you. I have mostly been on elementary campuses. I did a short stint at the middle school. So beyond middle school, I know generic, kind of general information, but not as much specific as I do with the littles.
Okay, well, that's kind of where we're going to focus today is on the littles in
Okay.
the ECI world.
Yes.
I know that all my little buddies, starting at age 3, I believe, we started ECI and they started going to an early childhood school. Can you kind of tell us what that process looks like?
Yes. So
And even what it is too. Let's maybe
yeah,
just explain it first.
absolutely. So early childhood intervention, if you are working with them, usually about around 2.5, they will help guide you to the school district. And each district does it differently. So some have like a centralized early childhood evaluation team. And then others, it's more campus-based. So they'll have a campus-based evaluation team. If you aren't working with early childhood, I would suggest just starting with the district you live in, their website. Usually, if you go to the main website under departments and then in special education, you'll see like child find or early childhood, and you can get information that way. Or just call if you're like, oh, okay, well, my other kids go to such and such school. I have a lot of parents reach out that way, and then I help them figure out who to contact. Our early childhood team will, like I said, about 2.5, they'll touch base with the parents and have them do just an intake form and then set up a time to evaluate. There's a 3 is 3 rule. So if we know about them before 3, we have to get them tested and in by their 3rd birthday. So as much as possible, we try to do that and honor that. If we don't know about them until later, like say 3.5, then we follow regular testing timelines. So that would be 45 school days and then 30 days, 30 calendar days to have that ARD meeting. And that feels like a long time. So I suggest, if you have any concerns, to start thinking about that at 2.5 and working with the district then.
Okay. And is this I know that both you and I live in DFW, so I'm like, oh yes, this is common practice, but is this
Yes.
a nationwide practice?
I think I only know specifically Texas. It is a specifically Texas thing that 3 is 3 and we get them in.
Okay.
And I say that because like other states have different eligibilities. So Texas doesn't have developmental delay as a disability. So if we can see that your child maybe isn't hitting those milestones, we're suspecting a disability, they can go in under the eligibility of non-categorical early childhood. So that we would say NCEC, so that's non-categorical early childhood, and it just means we do suspect something, but maybe because of language or we don't feel quite confident going autism yet or going another eligibility quite yet. So we give them a few years. They can fall under that eligibility until they are 6. So typically we reevaluate that kindergarten year, and that's when we kind of make sure we've determined that eligibility and solidified that piece.
Okay. And then after that, how often are they tested?
So that is up to the ARD committee, but federally we are required to look at that every 3 years. So as best practice, we look at that every 3 years. Now, middle school, high school, the best practice kind of gets a little fuzzy. But typically with my kiddos, if they come in at 3, I'm going to evaluate kinder, and then I'm probably going to evaluate third, and then like either 5th grade or going into 6th. Just because as they grow and develop, we want to make sure that we are supporting them the best way we can. And we know those standardized tests, especially for kiddos on the spectrum, may not be the best indicator of cognitively where they're at. So we want to look at all these pieces too.
Yes. Okay, and then we call that an FIE. Is that also, do you know if that's what that's called everywhere?
I don't know. Texas has a lot of very weird terms that are just specific to us. So I'm not sure everywhere calls it a full individualized evaluation. Also, Texas is one of the only states that uses a diagnostician. So in other states, the cognitive and achievement piece would be either done by the school psychologist, or Oklahoma has a funny term. I think they call them psychometrists. So it's kind of a blend. So who you know, from state to state, that varies. In Texas, the best way to kind of have a cheat sheet of all those acronyms, all the dates, is when you first sign consent, you will get a guide to the ARD process. That packet, and you can find it on TA's website too, or just Google ARD guide, has the best information in terms of acronyms. But we only give that to you once, and then we keep giving you the procedural safeguards. And that one has a lot more legalese into it, and it's not as I don't think it's as user-friendly. So if you're like, hey, I kind of remember that, I would ask for another ARD guide, because we've got them. We can email you one. And to me, that one's much easier to clarify some of these things.
I don't remember getting that at all. And I think probably most parents don't, because of just the chaos of, oh my goodness, well, this is my new life and this is what we're doing. And
yes. And we show the one packet in front of you every year. We're like, this is what you do if you don't agree with us, but the ARD guide, we don't. So yeah, you probably don't remember that one.
Also, I'm wondering about how you as a diagnostician, like you do your own testing and everything, but I have learned that it's helpful for all parties involved if I also bring any other evaluations that we've done at speech, at OT, at psych people, like whoever else out there has seen and laid eyes on my child and done some sort of something. I'm bringing that paperwork into the diagnostician so that she can have all that information.
Absolutely. That is so helpful, because it gives us a big picture, and we also don't want to double up. So if they just did this ABC testing, we're not going to also do that. If it's a reputable place that did the testing, I will use that and not do my own testing, because we do know that, especially when they're little, they're not always going to perform as well when there's 3 or 4 people in the room, and their attention span may be limited. So I'm not going to burden the kid with more testing if you've brought me really good information. But we also may use that, and in addition to our own testing, the school districts it's a little bit different with like the school testing and medical model, especially like for OTPT.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay, I have 2 more questions that aren't really ECI related, but I'm curious about what our rights are as parents to request an evaluation at any time.
Yes, you can absolutely request an evaluation at any time. We will, as a committee, as an ARD committee, look at that. Like, say, if your child has an intellectual disability and you request dyslexia, I am going to honor that, but I'm also going to explain like how kids are eligible for dyslexia. And in Texas and really everywhere, to have the label of dyslexia, you have to have normal cognition. So you can't be both intellectually disabled and dyslexia, because that reading difficulty isn't unexpected. So we may not honor all those pieces, but we would explain why. Right? Like I would be like, okay, well, we just did this cognitive piece. But for me, if a parent is really going to push it, even if they're ID, I'm going to go ahead and assess that piece, just so that you have that picture of why. Like, you're not just trusting me of why it's not dyslexia, but okay, I'll do the testing and I'll show you the pieces of why it's not this. But yes, as a parent, you can request it anytime. If it's a new thing, like you're thinking it's autism and they're eligible under specific learning disability, best practice is for the school to follow that initial timeline. Just ask that the school district honor that initial timeline, even if it isn't an initial, because it is important to gather that information in a timely manner. With eligibilities like autism or an emotional disturbance, we want to take that 45 school days because we want the teacher to have long enough with the student. And usually there's several different evaluation personnel working on that. So we want everybody to be able to gather all those pieces and not rush that. So I know for a lot of parents that 45 days feels like a really long time. And it is. If you sign consent in November, sometimes we're not meeting till end of February, March, and that feels like forever. But that is why we're trying to, it's a big deal for you to say, yes, this child needs services. We don't want, we want to make sure we're doing a thorough job. So.
Well, I'm grateful for that.
Well.
Okay, my other question, again, I don't know if this is by school district or state or whatever, but my son, Noah, we were homeschooling him and we knew that he had ADD, and that was kind of our biggest struggle for not being able to read at first, because he couldn't focus long enough on a word to be able to read. Sure. And so we got him medicated. So we started reading, but there were still several things, like he had dysgraphia, and it just seemed like something else was going on. And we wanted him evaluated to kind of figure out, like, hey, would he be able to receive services even if he was in school? Like, we don't want to enroll him just to enroll him to see if he maybe gets services. Sure. And so they informed us that we could do an evaluation as a non-attending student. And that was super helpful for us. And nobody had ever, I had to kind of push on that one to get that information. So I make up that a lot of homeschool families don't know about that, because it's not that it should be advertised, but it's not advertised. So
right. Well, and that was one of the things in that corrective action package where Texas was under identifying students with special needs. We weren't doing a good enough job advertising those services. So I believe there's supposed to be like additional information that kind of talks about that going out to more parents. Now, where that is in the pipeline, I don't know. But yes, that is true. So any kiddo that lives within our district, if you request testing, we will honor that. And then we have what's called an admission review dismissal meeting. And we say, if you were enrolled, these are the goals we would work on. These are the accommodations we suggest, and this is the kind of schedule of service we would provide. If they qualified for an additional service, such as speech, and you said, you know what, we're still going to homeschool, you could be eligible for what's called a service plan under proportionate share, meaning we have a portion of funding that goes for those homeschooled or private school kiddos to get speech services. So it may not be as much service as they would get if they were enrolled, but they could either come up to the school, or we have a kiddo that's going to Zoom this year just because they're, COVID. So that is a right that, yes, all homeschool or private school kids have.
I love that. Okay, was there anything else that you feel like we need to know about as parents, kind of walking into an evaluation or even ECI for the first time?
I think you're going to get a lot of forms, and I think it's hard to either not see your kid very negatively or very positively. So I think trying to like remove parent glasses and really objectively look at your child's skills is very important, because a lot of times we'll get forms that are either extremely, oh yeah, they can do everything and they're like advanced, or we'll get forms that's like, oh, they can't do anything. And where most kiddos are going to fall in between that. And that's just, that's challenging for all parents, right? To see your kids clearly without any sort of skewing. But that's a good tip. Just like really read those forms and make sure you're like, okay, yeah, like I say, and this is more for adaptive behavior. Like there'll be questions on there. Well, does your child brush their teeth? Well, both of my kiddos can brush their teeth, but would they if I didn't remind them? No. So they wouldn't get full credit for that. They would, I would scale them down. The other thing is, don't be afraid to ask a lot of questions, because we do this every day and we forget that you don't, or that it's your first child or first time going through this. And I'll even catch myself in meetings using acronyms or talking really fast, because we've got this window to get this meeting in. So I think it's okay as a parent to say, wait, hold on, slow down. Can you go over that again? It's also okay to request a meeting before the meeting. I especially like if for the littles, ask questions. This is your kiddo, and we may have your child for 3 to 5 years, but you're responsible for your child for life. So make sure you're asking questions, you're feeling comfortable about all those things, so that if something doesn't sit right, we can look at it. The ARD meeting should be a collaborative process. Sometimes it feels like everything is predetermined, because we do write the goals and prep what you were seeing, that visual piece of it before, but that doesn't mean that it can't change. So if you're not comfortable with something at the ARD meeting, or you feel like, hey, we really need to be working on this in the school setting, ask for it. So that's my biggest tip is be an advocate for your kiddo. You have every right to bring somebody with you, a friend, or, just another set of ears. We may have you sign a form that just says it's okay that they're hearing that information. But if you want to bring somebody, just let the diagnostician or whoever contacted you know ahead of time, and that's perfectly fine.
That's good to know.
Yes, because it's scary, and it's like a lot of people, and
a lot of information too.
It is a lot of information. Yes.
Yeah, we were told by our adoption agency that they could send somebody out with us. And then we're also have been told by LifePath, which is our mental health. However, we get community services. I forget what the real name of them is. And our caseworker there has offered several times to come out too, just to be another set of ears and be listening for things.
We definitely, yeah, I've had caseworkers and the ECI workers, if especially if they've been closely involved with the family, they'll come to those ARDs. And that is helpful because they've worked with those little ones before. So that's very good. Yeah.
I love this. Courtney, thank you so much.
You are very welcome.
Very grateful.